What's up, BoobTube? Another Rotary Miata update. It's been a little while since I've done anything, but I figured we'll turn around and go through everything that I have complete up to now. The interior is pretty much done for a little surprise here in a little bit, and most of the wiring's done. And later this week, hopefully, I will be powering the whole system on and getting everything set up for a start date later on. But let me go ahead and get you turned around here, and we're going to walk around and look at everything. So, engine bay is for the most part done. As you can see, got the big sway bar in, got my Exedias in, whole front end, everything in the front end except for the ball joints is all new bushings and everything. Still have to do the ball joints, which I will probably do those when I do the final, the rear end, the right, left rear, whatever, of the suspension, because I haven't done that side yet, but I have done this side. As you can tell, the car is kind of meh, and like it sits like this right now. So very low to the ground. I'm kind of worried about exhaust hit on the A-arms, but there shouldn't be much travel on the A-arms with the spring rate and everything that I have. I did find, as you can see though, 2 sensors are even in the car, so it's getting close. I did find though that right there is a previous wound to that rotor housing. The threads are pulled out of it. There's just enough for me to, the stud went in there fine and snugged down fine, but as soon as I started tightening the nut down on the stud, it started spinning the stud. I've tried a bolt to temporarily get in there so that I can hopefully start this, and that didn't work either. So I have ordered an actual helicoil kit to thread in there and hopefully fix that and everything else. And I'm hoping I can do that without pulling the motor out, because I really don't want to pull the motor back out, because it's to the point now to where it's literally hook water up, hook the oil up, and put a battery in it and see if it starts. And put the carburetor on it, obviously. So I really don't want to pull the motor back out. But that's besides the point. That's here in a few weeks. I got to do that. But the interior's done. Well, except for the safety padding, roll bar padding. So the seat is fully mounted, like not going anywhere. Belts are in. If you're thinking about buying the G-Force Enduro style belts, which are the pull up to tighten the lap belt, so you pull the belts up to tighten like that. They're really nice. My problem is the distance for, as you can see, the distance for the actual buckle is sewn in to the belt, so you can't adjust the distance from where it attaches. So it's attached to the factory seat belt bolt hole with its own whatever the little snap bracket is, but that distance, it's like this much, is threaded in or sewn in, and you can't adjust that distance, and it perfectly lines up with my seat to where the bracket is right in the hole for the belt to come through. So they're a pain in the ass to get tightened. You pretty much have to get in the car, see if they're tight enough. If they're not, like, pretty much pick your butt up out of the seat and tighten them, and then set your butt back down. So, and the bad thing about it is I went ahead and paid, I think these belts are like $30 or $40 extra for the FIA rated ones, because they're good for 5 years instead of 2 years like the SFIs. So I'll probably be selling those, or I might stick them in our other car or whatever when those belts go out, because I think those are only 2-year belts, and buy me a set that has the adjustable buckle, because I can't deal with that. But as you can see, the rest of the interior is done. The AIM is wired in, the GPS is glued to the dash, master all my switches, G-racing shifters in, handbrakes in, handbrake works, which is nice. So if I want to park the car somewhere, if I drive it on the streets, got the cool suit, and then everything that runs from the back of the car also is run right here, so it's really easy access to see everything. And as you know from previous videos, the relay board and the Haltech and everything is right behind the dash, so all I have to do is pull the tombstone off and I have access to everything. And all that is a couple of Phillips head screws and it comes out. The fire pull is hooked up and it's ready to go. I decided to do 2 fire pulls on this car. I did one on the driver fender, that's nicely marked with giant E. Since this system comes with 2 pull handles, I decided to do 2, and then one that the driver can reach very easily. So that's the interior, all buttoned up. Even has the mirror in it. I don't know if I showed that. Have the mirror all mounted and everything. Still have to do Lexan windows at some point. Had a buddy that drew up my logo. It's in. Fire bottle is mounted. Solidly mounted. Cool shirt's back here. It's kind of soft mounted. It's Velcro and not going to go anywhere. Battery mount needs to be made, and then this back portion of the car is done, and I can put the trunk on. And then also, per rules for Champ car, have to have aluminum straps over Lexan so that it doesn't blow out, and that's done. Cool, and it's got nice little styrofoam on the bottom to do that. So I'm going to go upstairs and change and get started on the back, the left rear of the suspension stuff, and get that done. That way it's all complete. I'll probably do a time lapse and do a talk over on that, and then eventually I'll also go over my new radiator mount situation, since the old one I couldn't get. I'm not a proficient enough aluminum welder for me to have a good seal on the radiator, so I kept having like pinholes show up in my welds and I couldn't get it to seal correctly. So the radiator that I'm running is a pretty cheap dual pass, so I just opted to get another one since I couldn't get all of the welds done. And I'm going to build a steel frame that cradles it with some straps on the sides and put some foam in between any aluminum and steel. That way it doesn't rub through, and it should be good. And I'll just have to keep an eye on it as I drive it. But it's going to add a little bit of weight to the front, which should help offset the cool suit and the fire bottle on the back, along with the battery, because the Rotary does not weigh as much as the factory motor. So, and that's also set behind the rear wheels, so that should help a ton. But anyways, we'll go upstairs, get changed, come back down here and get started on the right rear, driver's rear, left rear of the suspension bits, and finally have most of the suspension done and be ready to go. So, alright, be back in a second. Alright, so ball joints on a Miata are a pretty easy thing to handle. First you want to knock the tie rod end out, which mine hadn't been set in yet, so it was pretty easy to get out. And then loosen everything up and beat it with a big hammer, and it usually breaks free pretty easy.
I opted to remove the lower ball joint inside the knuckle before removing it, as you'll see here in a second. I've already got the upper ball joint back installed, and I found out that it's a little loose in the upper control arm, so I came back later on and tack welded it. And here you can see me getting the lower ball joint out. It gave me a little fit. The nut was spinning on the actual joint, so I had to grab it with a pair of vice grips there. And then the Delphi kit came with new hardware, so I installed that because it took up a lot of slack that was in the ball joint.
Alright, so as you saw in the time lapse there, got the upper and lower ball joint fixed, and then I don't know if you could tell in the time lapse, but the upper ball joint wasn't really being held tight by the control arm, so I tried to hammer some dimples into it with some punches, and that really wasn't, it was still kind of jiggling around a little bit, so I went ahead and attacked it on 2 spots just to make sure, because I really don't want this coming out. And the MBs have snap rings on these, the NAs do not. So just an easy fix, and that won't take but a couple seconds to buzz off and to replace it. But hopefully I won't ever have to replace it anytime soon, since these ball joints are brand spanking new. But that's the front half done. I went ahead and did the other side while the camera's charging, because I mean, you do one side, it's the same. So now onto that wheel.
Alright, the moment I've been dreading. Repairing the exhaust stud that pulled out of the housing here. So as you can see, I had to remove the O2 sensors and then also pull the wheel off and half the exhaust, and I tried to do the initial drill with the exhaust manifold on so that I could use the hole as a pilot, but the drill wouldn't quite fit in there, so I decided to go ahead and pull the exhaust off, and then it was pretty easy smeezy from there. Just double checking, measuring. You measure all your depths off of the bottom of your hole, which you measure with something by sticking it down in there. And my process for doing a tap is do a little bit and then back it all the way out and clean the threads, do it a little bit again, especially on a blind hole, because the metal will get bound up in the bottom of the hole and you can actually pull the threads back out. But so far so good. I'm pretty impressed with the Timesert. I don't trust the exhaust stud to go in and not pull it cert out, so I didn't quite torque it all the way, but other than that, it turned out great.
Well, as you saw right there, this is probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've done on the whole car so far. Hopefully my time-lapse talk-over is informative on how to do one of those, and I hope you never have to do one. And hopefully that fixed everything. I'm actually going to torque the nuts down to make sure that they're not over torqued to pull that back out. But I am I'm pleased with the final product. You can't even tell that it has been fixed. So I'm going to double nut it and torque it and make sure that it's got 22 foot-pounds on it, and then stick everything back together. So this is probably a little bit of a long video, since this has got this and then me working on the bushings, which no, I still haven't done the back one yet. I'll do that later. May record it, may not. But I wanted to get this done so that I'm not worried about it while I'm at Daytona, and feel pretty good about it. So that's it for now, guys. Be sure to do the YouTube bullcrap if you made it this far, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Happy Brad.